undergone any form of surgical procedure? Quite a few. I've had plenty myself, mostly my own fault, and I've often marvelled at simply what we know and what we can do in the operating theatre these days. How we actually came to that knowledge is a very gruesome and fascinating story. Much of what we know currently in the medical world was only developed in the last 400 years or so. Prior to that, most medicine practiced in Europe was based on principles that were founded in ancient Greece over 2,000 years beforehand. There are many heroes of medicine from the 1600s, like William Harvey, who discovered or worked out blood circulation, and Robert Hooke, who discovered cells, for example. Surgery took off in the 1700s, and most of the heroes of that era have gone largely unsung and anonymous. More about that later. One famous example of a surgical pioneer from that time is John Hunter. John Hunter was born in 1728, and he's widely regarded as the father of modern surgery. Before then, surgery was the poor cousin to the physician, and it was often practiced by the local barber simply because he had the sharpest blades in town. So what was John Hunter's radical approach to surgery? Learning anatomy. Seems obvious now. But the traditional approach then was to memorise a lot of Latin and to study the 4 humours of the human body, which were blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile, or Big Mac special sauce. Anatomy was icky and irrelevant. However, studying anatomy requires bodies, and prior to refrigeration, lots of bodies. And so at his brother's London School of Anatomy, John became responsible for procurement. Now legally, he was able to take 1 or 2 bodies a year from the gallows, but that was an all-out brawl between rival anatomy schools and the relatives of the hung. The vast majority of bodies that were used were purchased illegally from the resurrectionists, gangs of criminals who specialised in grave robbery. Now, John's dedication to his research was extraordinary, spending long hours locked up with decaying bodies, cutting and slicing his way through London's winters before the warmer weather made it absolutely impossible. His notes include facts like the bile taken from the stomach of a rotting corpse was brackish to the taste. Much like Big Mac special sauce. And then John went on to found his own anatomy school. He performed countless operations for both the poor and royalty alike, and he contributed an enormous amount to the body of knowledge that we have about bodies. So there's no doubt that John and those like him were skilled, they were bold, and they were courageous. They were heroes. But still, the vast majority of real heroes from that period, in my opinion, were the poor patients. And let me demonstrate why. A common procedure at the time was to remove bladder stones. It was a common ailment, affected everybody. Now, if you were wealthy, this table here would be your kitchen table with the family around. If not, it would be at a hospital or a university, and it would be covered with the blood and the gore of the operations that had gone before, as would all of the equipment and the surgeon. So, your strides were dropped, and you were laid on the table, on your back, and your wrists were tied to your ankles. Nothing can go well from here. The surgeon then had you held down or strapped, and then he stuck a blood-stained finger, you know where, and he looked around for the stone. When he found it, he took a knife and he sliced into your perineum. which is that incredibly sensitive area between one private part and the next. He cut his way through muscles and nerves and the wall of your bladder, and then he used the finger to push the stone out through the cut that he had made, and then he stitched it all back together. This was before anaesthetic. Before, not after, before. You were awake and you felt every single bit. You suffered horrendous infections afterwards because germ theory was unknown at the time, and so was sterilisation. If you managed to survive the trauma, the resulting blood loss, the infections afterwards, and remained continent, you were a roaring success. This was considered a minor procedure, but 1 in 10 people still died from it. The stats from the more complex procedure were more like 9 in 10, and descriptions of them truly horrendous. But still they came. So, the next time you need to undergo any form of surgical procedure, by all means, praise the skill of your surgeon. Kiss the hand of your anaesthetist. But afterwards, when you are recovering in the Young and Jackson ward over a few therapeutic ales, raise a glass to the thousands of poor souls who, having heard the screams of the people going before them, still voluntarily had themselves strapped to blood-soaked tables and subjected to the most excruciating torture, all in the name of medical advancement. Their survival, more often otherwise, laid the foundations for the knowledge, the comfort, and the cures that we enjoy today. They are truly the heroes of their time and worthy of our respect and our gratitude. Thank you.